Hey everybody, welcome to the webinar. If you're jumping in or when you jump in, I would love for you to drop in the chat. Let us know where you're calling in from, where you're watching us. We just like for two reasons. One, we like to know where you are in the world right now. And two, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me and follow directions the right way. So drop in the chat where you are watching from. I would love to know where everyone's tuning in. I'm here in Michigan. Brian's in California. We've got some Colorado and Illinois people jumping in. Awesome. So let's get started. Escape the grind, build a business that runs without you. So this is a super important webinar for real estate professionals who are ready to level up. And if you're stuck in the day-to-day grind of showings, listings, never-ending client calls, this session will show you how to step out of production without sacrificing your income. We've got renowned coach Brian Icenhower here, who's been in the business for 35 years. He's owned market centers, he's been an agent, he's led teams, he's done it all. He's been in our footsteps and still is in our footsteps regularly. And he's going to explain how to build the right systems, hire and train effectively, create a self-sustaining business that gives you freedom, scalability, and a life outside of real estate, which we all love. So it's time to go from operator to owner. So thanks for being here, Brian. I appreciate it.
You bet, Nick. Happy to be here as always. Thank you.
Hey, so uh, I have a question to start this off. What do you see the biggest issue or the biggest reason or the biggest pain point that agents have who run teams who want to step out of production, but they typically aren't doing that? What's going through their brain around why that might not be a good idea or why they might be afraid or what the main reason is that they decide not to do it?
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll start by saying we deal with this a lot of our clients. Our coaching clientele is primarily based with real estate team leaders and real estate brokerage owners. We do coach solo agents, but that's probably not the best topic for them right now, although this is great to hear because you can see where you can go and it'll give you motivation. But the biggest problem, they usually confront is, hey, they have this idea. Hey, I want to grow my team or my brokerage big enough so that someday I'm getting enough production from all of the other agents so that I myself do not have to be consumer facing. I don't have to be showing property. I don't have to be listing property myself because there's not enough income coming into my organization where I can focus a little bit more on leading. And that's probably the biggest problem. And I can actually expand on that. I actually had something pulled up. I'll show you. It's a concept that we talk about with our clients a lot, and it's a concept I call, for lack of a better word, the death zone. And and you can see this graphic. At the top, you see this fellow up here all by himself in the top left corner. That's your rainmaker, your team leader. Okay, and when they start, the vast majority of the production from the organization is coming from him, and a much smaller amount coming from the agents. And then as we gravitate over time, and we start increasing production, the idea is for a little less of his production to represent the total amount that the team or brokerage produces, and a little more from the other agents. That can come from them selling more, that can come from getting more agents. And then in the middle here is where we typically get stuck. The gray shaded area in the middle, and depending if you're a team or a brokerage, the don't pay so much attention to the numbers and the millions because that can be very different depending on your price point and what type of organization you have. But in the middle, that's where most people get stuck in the death zone and they stall out. It's why most small teams don't make it. The turnover gets too high. The agents keep rifling through. They're not bringing in enough business themselves. And quite frankly, that's where most of our clients come to us. And our goal is to try to break them through that so that we get more and more production from the agents and less and ultimately none to step out um, from the actual rainmaker team leader themselves. So there's a lot of, we're going to jump ahead, past a lot of those tactics and strategies for lack of time today and talk about how do we actually step out. If we have time later, I can go back into what I consider the key one, which is how do we get these agents producing and bringing in their own business and not being so reliant upon the business the team leader, the rainmaker provides them, because that's really the key. Even with teams that get up to 30, 40 agents, if all their agents are solely dependent on leads provided by the team, whatever type they may be, that's where they get stuck and that turnover starts to happen. Agents start to leave. You have to recruit more agents. The team leader, the rainmaker, still producing. So they don't really have time to recruit. So they start to hate recruiting, and that creates a lot of burnout. So people, getting to the other side, I I look at it like hot coals, and it's a lot of hot coals right now because we have a low sales volume market with low inventory and relatively higher rates. So what ends up happening is they start growing and then they get into that death zone and then they kind of stall out and the coals get really hot on their feet and they start to forget why they were going to, what was on the other side of the coals that they were moving to in the first place. And that's the hard part. They get there, they burn out, they say, "Oh no, this isn't for me. I want to start taking steps backwards." So a lot of people are taking steps backwards right now. Team agent counts are going down, brokerage agent counts are going down because they really don't see getting across the coals what's over there as a reality. They don't think they can step out of production anymore. They don't believe that can happen for whatever reason. Maybe it's this market, maybe it's this political environment, maybe it's the type of agents they have, maybe they don't see it working. I'm here to tell you it does work. We do it all the time with our clients. We've been doing it for years, if not decades. We've got tons of clients that have been able to step out through a team, a brokerage, a teamerage, whatever you want to call it. There's millions of ways to do it. And I've kind of got recently, we've coached a lot of people through it, but we've kind of got a system for it. And there's a few other, different ways you can certainly achieve this, but we've got a pretty good system to really structure the step out in a big way. The key first, though, and I will say this, is we must get our agents generating business from themselves and not solely reliant upon the team's leads. It's very hard to do to generate enough leads, enough motivation, enough buyer conversion to do it otherwise. And if everybody's completely dependent on the team for all their business, they will soon leave you. Even though you think they should never leave you because you're giving them all their business. Trust me, there's a lot of historical proof around this. They will. Just understand, no one signed up when they got their real estate license to be a telemarketer. No one did. They all had this dream. I guess, definitely I get that they need to have their leads supplemented when they first start. But ultimately, most people want to build a database of people that just slowly come to them over time, like most team leaders and rainmakers have had happen. So if we don't enable them to do that and we aren't successful in how we do that, they're never going to be bringing business to the organization. They're going to be wholly dependent on the organization. And there's some really, really key points that I'm yet to see a client come into our company that was doing them. It's kind of our secret sauce. And if we get time at the end, I'll explain how to increase agent production so that they're actually bringing business in to the team or brokerage that way and not wholly dependent on it. But that is a key factor. I got to throw that disclosure out there because you're not going to just get to this point without that happening, if that makes sense. You're muted, Nick.
Oh, I muted myself and I forgot that I muted myself.
That's okay.
That makes total sense. Do you think that what's a reason why you should not step out of production?
Well, we got to have enough production to pay the bills, right? So,
Right.
so if you are stepping out because you're just burnt out or something like that, we may have some work to do, some systems to put in place to make sure that you can. Stepping out of production, prematurely is a huge problem. And stepping out of production just to do something else, like I'm going to do
Right.
loans right now, or I'm going to start, I'm going to start putting up signs to do lower dollar per hour work, or I want to flip a couple houses. Quite frankly, doing that does not generate the same income as you could. Those are lower
Yeah.
dollar per hour activities, unless you can scale those activities. So you can step out if you're going to roll up your sleeves and build something that scales that you can quickly step out of. In fact, that's one of the best reasons to step out. But if you're going to a lower dollar producing activity, than you have in real estate, which is hard to find. Real estate's a very high dollar producing activity if if your systems are in place, and that's kind of what we're known for, systems. I'm not a big fan of one-off ideas that generate business. I really want to
Right.
put an automated system in place that brings a steady flow of income so we can get out of the up-down roller coaster that real estate often
Yeah,
is
that makes a lot
otherwise.
of sense.
How about I skip ahead? I want to kind of I don't want
You
to make
do
everybody
whatever you
wait to
want
the
to
end.
do.
Okay, good. I want
You're
to
the
do it
expert.
because this takes a minute and this gets kind of heady. And if you're not looking at a screen or something, this is going to be tough
Yeah,
because I hope
so
you didn't think
I'm
I
good
was
with
going to.
pictures. I like
Good.
pictures.
Yeah, I don't want to just give magic pills that are really easy to digest, or I guarantee you they don't work. So I do want to show you something on my screen right now. And this, get close to your screens here because this is a lot. This is an example of how someone can step out of production and replace themselves. Okay. And don't pay
Okay.
so much attention to the numbers here. Because the numbers are actually completely movable. It's different price points, different structures,
Yeah.
different commission splits, different everything. But for this example, we're going to assume it's a team, but this could easily be a brokerage the same way. If you want to step out of leadership of the brokerage, you can structure just about anything. You can structure property management this way, mortgage this way, any business really. We're showing one for a team right now. We've got them for everything, but again, the numbers don't make much sense. So if you get the gist of this, you should be able to do these on your own, to be honest with you. Um, Understand a few things here. You've got team annual company dollar we're talking about, okay? And when I mean company dollar, that's your brokerage or that's your team after you pay the agent splits, okay? So you got a gross commission check. How much revenue do you bring in after you pay the agents? If you got agents on an 80/20, it's the brokerage's 20%, you know? So that's how it works. So we're going to assume that this team brings in $700,000 of revenue for team dollar. Okay. And I'm going to just call it as company dollar so it can apply to both brokerages and teams. Okay. And they have a net profit of $500,000. If these seem too big to you or too small to you, again, don't worry about it. That actually has no difference in how this works, right? And we're going to assume kind of the average annual median of 400,000 home price. Okay. And let's say in year one, we're taking the exact same numbers, $700,000 of team revenue dollar coming in. Okay. Then we're going to actually bring on, someone. Again, that's a whole different conversation as to who that person is and what they look like and what they should do. Please get a coach if you try to do this. I know that's self-serving, but my goodness, do not trial and error this process. Just get a coach for a bit to help you set this up. It's well worth it. And let's say that the team agent usually is on a 50/50. We're going to bump them up to an 80/20 split, which means that you're actually paying them $20,000 of an additional income right there just from the jump to a 50/50 to an 80/20. Okay. So we compensate them that way. Then we give them, let's say, a 5% override on team company dollar. So everything that the agents are selling, they're getting 5% of that commission, just a little tiny chunk of the commission split. So if you got agents on a 50/50, let's say, again, the numbers don't matter so much here. It's different for every person, so get a coach for that. Don't pick the numbers yourself. If you got the agents on a 50% split, you pay this guy 5%, and now the team's collecting 45%. Simple as that. They get $35,000 there. And we just have a rule in place at all times on teams, at least. It's different for brokerages, very different, that they have to hold the operating expenses at 30% because we don't want them suddenly growing your team and spending a lot of money to do it. That'll decrease your net income. So we have to actually hold the expenses there. Again, that number can be different for different teams as well, too, very much so. I've seen those go down to 15%. Depending how big the team is, it tends to be a little bit lower number. So that's kind of how that would work. Or, excuse me, that can go higher on operating expenses depending how big the team is. So then this person comes on, let's say they grow the team, they start increasing production and they start adding agents, right? Because that's going to be their goal. Their metric is going to be based on that. Remember that 5% override is going to incentivize them. So then let's say by year two, their next benchmark, if they are able to get the team company dollar from 700,000 up to 900,000, which is a 25% increase, then we're going to keep paying them that 80-20 split on their own personal income because they're selling still. And now we're going to up them to a 7.5% override. Okay. Now understand, every time I start paying them more, I, as the original team leader, rainmaker owner, am still getting this $500,000 every single year. This is very important to keep. My net income never drops. Why? I'm able to pay them on the growth they've achieved by stepping in. So I'm just going to keep making $500,000 and I'm not even running things anymore. I may not be running the team anymore. I'm definitely not selling anymore, right? So I'm stepping out. He's got to keep pushing it. He or she's got to keep pushing it and growing. That's how you ensure that they grow. Otherwise, people will not recruit. They will not increase production. They'll just become problem solvers. They will just put out fires. And most leaders are that. I would say 98% of leaders just are too busy to grow because they're putting out problems. So we've got to hire someone and incentivize them and have very firm job descriptions around this, where they know that growth is their key key duty and task and responsibility with the team. That is absolutely crucial, or you're just going to get another problem solver that logs everything up in the death zone. And that's crucial. That's life in real estate, and we need to get our heads around that. Then year three, we get up to 1.1 million in team revenue, and now we've got a 50% increase, right? So they're still getting their 80-20 split. Now they're getting 10% override, and based on that, they're getting $110,000 a year. I mean, that's like set salary, good salary income, right? Year four, 1.4 million, that's a 100% increase. Okay, so now they're really moving. They're getting a 12.5%. Maybe we bump them up here to 100%. I just threw that in there. You could do that anywhere. 12.5% override on team company dollar. Now they're making $175,000. That's a solid salary, one of the highest salaries you will see in the real estate industry anywhere for any company. And you're still making $500,000 every
Well, I have
single
a
year
quick
this
question.
happens. You bet. You
The
bet.
the override goes to the agents or it goes to
No, no,
the
no.
new
That goes
team
to your
leader?
replacement. That goes to
Okay,
your
that's what I was gonna say.
replacement team leader. Yeah,
Okay.
that's how we're paying them. I'm not paying them a salary. That 12 point, I mean, they're getting paid off the production of the team. And if they
Okay.
say they can grow it and they say they can increase it, which they all do up front, almost everybody says, "Oh, I can grow, I can recruit, I can produce." Well, let's see if you can and manage the team. And if it doesn't work out, like if they fall backwards, then we fall back into the compensation structure for that area, which can happen. I mean, the market can get in the
Yeah.
way of that, So they fall back and it's all clearly outlined, right? And then this is where it gets real cool. On year five, we need to hold above that 1.4 million level for at least a year. And then they've got a choice, right? Because,
Yeah.
and you can see this, they can either agree to formally vest in ownership shares of the company, and I put in here a 25% ownership share. It's a number I typically like. And they can get paid by true owner distribution. So if you've got an LLC or a S corp or whatever you got, partnership, they're going to fully vest. I mean, they're going to be an owner with you, and you want them to be very badly because they've grown your organization, which means all the people, when you recruit people in, they are tied to you as the recruiter. You want to keep this person attached to you at the hip. But the problem for them is now you're actually on the hook for the liabilities too as an owner. So if there's a cash call, if there's a bad February, something like that, you may have to put money up. So a lot of guys don't want to do that. They're not in that financial position to do it. There's a lot of other reasons they may not want to be attached to the liabilities. So they can decline to vest and continue at that year four comp plan, and you still retain 100% of your ownership as well too. Okay.
There's
The
a
re
question. There's a question in the chat from a woman named Robin Icenhower. Does that sound familiar to you?
That sounds like my wife got on here. How'd she let her
I
in?
know,
They're
I'm
letting
kidding.
anybody in here.
Seriously. She wants to know, do you back out the team leader's production GCI to get the team's net profit?
I'm not quite sure I understand. Do you
Yeah, I'm not
back
sure I understand that either.
uh
Um, but Robin, maybe there was a
Yeah, and
typo.
that, I get it. I get it. The team's person, I do now get it, what she's saying.
Okay.
She's saying at the very beginning, do we back out? And that's actually dealer's choice on that. It depends. I mean, again, a lot of this is it depends. I'm trying to show an example, but that is a good question. I know better than to say otherwise, because at the very beginning, we're talking, we definitely typically would not include the Rainmaker's production in the override, because the goal is to get the rainmaker out, right? So we want that
Right.
person out. If the rainmaker is already, it depends how far out they are too. If they're still selling a whole lot of it, I mean, I'd always keep them out of the override. And I would probably say try to keep them out of the production benchmarks too, since the goal is to get that rainmaker out. So I would probably keep them out as much as possible, because otherwise the new replacement person is going to be saying, "Hey, man, our production is going down because you're not selling anymore." Well, that's the whole idea, and so we want to kind of lay that expectation out from the start. So that's a great question, actually. Probably should have said that up front. I know better than to not listen to my wife. Okay, so
Uh-oh.
now moving forward, down at the bottom, you can see this is where it gets really cool, right? Because now let's say they do vest, okay, and they are a 25% owner. We want to create the same path to growth for them, right? Because now they're actually up at a level where we've doubled everything in the company. So that net income of 500,000, I'm still getting it every single year, and hopefully for the rest of my life. That's why owning a business is so much more valuable than it is owning rental properties and things, which is usually where we're throwing all of our money. I love rental properties, don't get me wrong, but man, don't give up on running a business, because if you own a business, now you're playing Monopoly with hotels, not just little houses. So it's very important. You have a business, you're getting $500,000 and you've stepped out of it. And I've had the privilege of being able to do that multiple times in my life. And it's wonderful. It's still wonderful. So please try to get across the coals, and you want to provide the same opportunity, because they're going to want to get passive income too, your replacement. Okay, so they've moved, they've doubled your net income. So now they're making, as a 25% owner, if you're making 500,000, in theory, they should be making around, $250,000 of net income as well too. So now they can actually look for their replacement and compensate it, so that if we take that, remember, we went from 700 to 1.4, that doubles it. Now, if we can get 1.4 up to 2.1, through a third leader, we can use the same path, the same process for them, so that second leader can step out, right? And you can keep doing this. That's why we only give away 25%. So now we have 25% to offer to somebody else, and you, the original rainmaker, are the owner. You've got the 50% chunk still, and in theory, I mean, you're still making 500,000. You have the ability to give it to a fourth person, so you've got three leaders. That makes your leadership bench so deep and strong. I mean, the minute you put a second leader in, they're now in charge of that third person. So if the third person doesn't work out, which oftentimes they don't, guys, I don't want to paint the rosiest picture in the world. They've got to go find their replacement again. You are now just an investor owner that gets a paycheck. You've got someone else trying to hire their replacement. All you can do is coach and guide them moving forward, maybe a weekly phone call, maybe a monthly phone call after a couple of years. It gets very, very easy at that point, right? And you create a company that's far too big to fail, with a very deep leadership bench that everybody in the company was attracted to at some different point. No one's ever leaving. It's kind of on a macro scale how law firms do it, with all those names, and two of them you don't even see anymore, sometimes dead. Kind of the same concept, just don't die. The point is, we're trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger through it, right? So understand that the original net income never decreases here if done correctly. And we just got to keep that production above each benchmark as we move forward. And we're going to hold the operating expenses, at a set amount, so that we don't start spending money to increase revenues. We got to watch the budget there. How you do that, again, get a coach for this kind of stuff. It's really important that we do. I see a lot of you taking photos of the screen, which is cool too. But that is, quite frankly, that is the step that everybody has been missing. I mean, you can read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. It's a great book, probably the best book there is out there for real estate, but it doesn't tell you how to step out. It tells you should and a few ideas around it, but it doesn't give you the process. And I think we've had the greatest success with getting people out of production or out of team leadership or brokerage leadership through processes that are similar. Again, do not Frankenstein this yourself. I really, really will tell you it is not a good idea. Um, because what'll end up happening if you do without a coach involved is some very damaging stuff that can actually blow up your entire organization very, very quickly. Because when you bring on another leader, it's very delicate, especially if they grow. If they, or, because if they do, you're going to have a lot of agents that are going to be very attached to them and not you. So you need to know how to do that very delicately, and it's a little bit more than I'm going to go into on this because I did promise you I'd get back to something here in a minute that I think is very important to get to this place as a leader, especially if you're stuck in the death zone, small teams, small brokerages, and death zones. I mean, small brokerages typically of 20, 30, 40 agents. That's usually a death zone for the leader where that leader still has to sell. It's not always, but usually small teams, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 agents. Usually they get stuck right there and the production never changes and they get stuck, you know, 80 units to 200 units. It's very hard to break through that. It's where a lot of our clients come in, brokerages with 20, 30, 40 agents, they come in because, usually, quite frankly, if you stay there, my advice is close the brokerage and join one because your own production is usually covering the losses of your brokerage. The agents aren't covering the expenses typically. So usually your own
Quick
production
question.
is. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Quick question for you. So all right, so we're using 500,000 as that number to pay yourself, right? Can that number ever, how do you make that number increase over time? Because
Well,
you're
you
paying
could.
out,
I mean,
well,
you
because you're
could.
paying out the override, you're giving the team members slightly higher split for personal production. So like,
Mhm.
if I'm going to step out
Agent
of
growth,
production,
agent count growth, and production growth are what enable it. Like
okay,
in that example, the person stepping out is happy with not working and receiving $500,000 a year,
true.
and I
I
think
mean, I'd be
most
happy
are.
with that too.
Right. But there is a way to structure it so that goes up too, certainly.
Okay.
In fact, in all likelihood, it will as you continue to grow, because as they're earning in, they're going to overachieve their benchmarks a lot on that. We see that all the time where they're getting 25%, let's say, and they vest as an owner, and you're getting 50%. Well, as that third person's trying to grow it and things, there'll be times where it jumps over that 500,000 all the time. But there's a way to structure it right in there as well too. It's very easy to do. That's why I say get a coach because those numbers are all just suggestions. It's very easy. I mean, I've seen solo agents do it with one other person in luxury markets very easily. They've got a
Hmm.
set amount. They let someone. We've helped a lot of people retire that way just with one other person, and maybe an admin or something. Very easy to do. So don't get hung up on it. I'm just talking about national averages here. So
Yeah.
when I say the numbers don't matter that much, I really mean it. And if that's hard for you to digest, you just kind of have to trust us on it. That's
Well,
it's
I mean, it
easy
has
to
to do
structure
with,
for you.
listen, what's your cost of living? How much more do what else do you like to do with your time, after you pay your mortgage and you pay your bills? How much more do you need, right? I mean, I think that $500,000, yeah, it doesn't really matter what number it is. Like in Michigan, that $500,000 would go a very, very, very long way. So like it might not be $500,000 in Michigan. It might be
Sure.
$350,000, which is still great.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
Absolutely. And it may not be enough for others. I just pick numbers that kind of a
yeah, because
national
you'll have a lot
average.
of agents who are like, well, that's not enough for me, or that's, it doesn't matter. Just figure out what it is that you need and take it from there, right?
Right. The other concept I promised to tell you on, this is probably the secret sauce for these organizations, is getting their agents not dependent, because there's only so many leads to go around. If you get
Mm,
too big, I see this is where I see this a lot, is the big teams that are just have a bunch of young telemarketers all the time.
mhm,
It is, I see this a lot, and that's not bad. Don't get me wrong, but the turnover is so high on those teams, right? Because they just want something better. You've got to get them growing their own businesses like you did, where they have a sphere of influence of people they know and referred them. I mean, that's 80% of the business in America anyway. So says NAR's study of home buyers and sellers for the last 30 years plus. That's where 80% of people either took an agent, chose an agent, especially on the list side, they knew. Um, or someone that they knew referred them to. So it's very important we get them building their own businesses too. It's absolutely crucial. And there's a way to incentivize that I refer to as the matching standard. Um, and basically what we do is it becomes our chief criteria for lead distribution. This primarily applies to teams, but if you have a team, um, typically what we try to do is we try to give leads to the agents on the team that are generating closings from their own spheres. And we try to stay ahead of them, AKA match them. So we're always trying to stay ahead of those agents rather than the agents that are just wholly dependent on leads. And I've seen this for decades. I mean, running so many and owning so many different brokerages, you'll see an agent leave a team, and then I couldn't believe it. They're selling 30 houses a year. Why'd you leave the team? And I'll ask the agent, because I want to keep them both on the same brokerage. I don't want either of them to leave me. I'll say, well, why'd you leave? I'm trying to kind of smooth things over and explore. And they'll say, well, I got 30, I closed 30 transactions. I'll say, well, how many of those did you get from the team? And they'll say, none of them, maybe one of them. I'll be like, oh, okay, I can see. I mean, why would you be paying a split if you're bringing in all the business and they're not giving you much else? Then I go
yeah.
over the team leader and I'd say, ask him the exact same question. Hey, I saw, Janice left your team. And she closed 30 transactions. We're showing how many of those did you provide to her versus she generated on her own? And they'll say, we provided all of them to her. So there's a complete disconnect. It's amazing how much agents don't know the difference between lead generation and lead conversion. But trust me, if you don't talk about that a lot and you don't incentivize your lead distribution and all compensations around that, they will forget. Because now Janice goes off on her own and she's got nothing to convert. You see that all the time. They start to think they're doing all the work, but they don't
Yeah.
understand the key is generating. That's where everything comes from, is all the effort and systems and money and time and relationships that have generated these leads in the first place. That's the hard part in this game. If you can lead generate, you're a golden goose in this industry. Almost, if you can recruit, you're even a bigger golden goose. But those are the highest dollar activities out there. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure they understand that. So on our dashboards and our scoreboards, we're always showing total production, and then we're breaking it down, from their own sphere of influence versus leads provided by the team. And we're really rewarding those agents that produce a lot. And it solves almost every problem with teams, believe it or not, if we can put that in place. Imagine getting halfway through the year in June, and we're into June, and an agent has closed 17 transactions, and 10 of those were provided by the team, and only 7 of those came from their own sphere of influence. Okay. That's good matching right there. You're just staying ahead of them as a rainmaker, right? At that point, that agent, even if they're on a 50-50 split, would be crazy to leave, because they're going to lose 65% of their net income right away. You see what I'm saying? Because we stayed ahead of them. And we can prove that. And we're constantly showing that and trying and encouraging them. And so you'll see that. And you can see not many agents can keep up with the team. It's a very small percentage. It's usually like 1 out of 10, 1 out of 15
Yeah.
on average. And if there is one that you can't, that is pushing you, that's when you say, okay, I'm going to take you off that 50-50. I'm going to put you on a 70-30, 75-25, 80-20. I really don't care about the numbers there, believe it or not. And I'm going to show, and I'm going to tell everybody about it. Like, this person earned their way out. And guess what? I'll keep growing at the bottom. As long as we're still growing to get across those hot coals to the other side, we'll be fine. I want them to stay on the team. Because usually they're on your team looking at your team as a stepping stone for them to go on their own. But if
Right.
we can actually show that high producing agents are staying here, that will actually show them a path for growth within the team. I'm looking for everything I can to keep those agents, and I don't need to. So we got to stop looking at agents transactionally. Like, I don't make any money off that agent. Well, you're thinking like an agent. You're not thinking like a business leader now. I don't need to make that much money off that person. That person makes me a lot of money, just not directly off their closings. All their
Mhm.
signs, all their proof. Can you imagine now? You're actually showing all the agents in your local community that it's okay to be a top producer on your team. You'll be able to start bringing them in, based on their historical track records. If they can show you that if they were over at another brokerage and they closed 20 transactions, I can now bring them over and put them on a higher split, put them on an 80-20. If they want to take my leads for 50-50, they can. They don't have to. Oftentimes they won't want to. We can bring them over, put them on an 80-20, and still make that very transparent, if not brag about it to all my other agents that you can get here too. Now, all of a sudden, this young telemarketing team that no self-respecting, high-producing agent would ever lower themselves and sully their hands by joining has different types of agents. So we're getting bigger, we're diversifying, and we're increasing our market value and our reputations in the local area, all because we put a few of these key things in place. And we've seen this work with wild success. Because all of a sudden, now we're not getting stuck. We're not having the turnover. We have a path to growth, and we're constantly reminding them, hey, if you go on your own, you're going to lose all the business we've given you. So all of a sudden, top agents stop leading. Now we've got, and those are the best candidates for leaders. We don't want to reward phone converters in leadership because they don't know how to generate business themselves. They won't know how to recruit themselves either. Because recruiting is even harder than generating listings. Trust me. So understand that we want to reward people that do what their original goals are. It's not a hard sell either. With every agent that joins your team, it's like, hey, we want you to build a business where you're not, having to work the phones all the time. We're going to provide you with these leads so you can pay the bills to supplement your business. But what we really want you to do is grow your own business that is dependent that is dependent on you, that just like we did. And everybody's going to get into that. It's never ever, you never have to fight anybody on that. And we're going to reward agents based on that. Now, new agents, they're not going to have much production for their own sphere. They haven't got it together yet. So little exception in their first year or two. We're going to try to feed them some leads and probably get way ahead of them on the matching standard. But we're
Mhm.
going to devote the best leads to the agents that are bringing it from their SOI, not necessarily the ones you feel the most comfortable with or the ones you like the most. Or, so we got to put some lead distribution criteria in place that rewards them based on production. So production centric culture is what takes hold. Not a drama culture, not a we all go to lunch culture, not a culture where we have lots of fun together culture. Those are great for very small teams that want to stay in the death zone with a lot of turnover. It's just razor thin. We've got to put some sort of production centric atmosphere in there that supports strong cultures like that. Otherwise, we're just operating off vapor. It's just off fumes. There's no real foundation underneath it. So it's crucial. But that's one of many key things that need to be done to get out of that death zone. But that's a big one that I thought I could probably explain to you right now.
Yeah, I
Again,
think
don't
it's
try
great.
to do that on your own. There's a lot of rules around it, but it'll take care of all the different needs. Like, hey, I need more leads. I need better leads. Because those are our opportunities to then refocus them on their sphere of influence. That's evidence. The fact you need better leads or more leads is more evidence why you need to focus on your database, because they really go for those lower priced, tougher to convert leads, lower priced on average, tougher to convert leads because it's just a buyer or seller right now. They don't want
Right.
to go to college to earn later money, bigger money later. They don't want to build that sphere of influence of people they know. They've got all these mystiques around it, and they know that that's a longer game. So we have to force them to do it. And otherwise, they're going to be totally dependent their entire life and have to lead generate every single day. And they're going to have to chase everything they eat, which is exhausting and leads to burnout. It's why 87% of agents don't make it 5 years in this business. It's because they get tired of chasing it. They just can't get enough new business. And most of the time it's because they never put their database together. And teams are the best situated to get them to do it. They're very close. They're right on top of them. So with teams, understand that implementing just some of these simple expectations and standards in your team goes a very, very long way.
Yeah. Um, so, you want to set them up for success in the sense that like they could exit the team if they wanted to, but won't exit the team because
Right.
of the support that they're getting. Because you're saying a lot of agents, they join teams. Oh, I need the leads. I need the leads. I need the leads. At first, I'm sure you do, right? Especially if you're a new agent and you don't have much of an SOI. But you're saying, get them to a point where if they wanted to, they could leave, but they're not going to because of the culture you've created or the support that you've given them, essentially, right?
Yeah, and the opportunities. I mean, because as you get bigger like that, I mean, think about it. Now, let's say you got an agent that's doing 28 transactions from their own SOI, 35, whatever. They're not going to want your team leads anymore. And they may go someplace for a cheaper split, but they usually go because they want to start their own team or their own brokerage.
Yeah.
Well, that's tough. You start your own team. Now you got to pay for those leads if to give to other
Yeah.
people. You've got to you've got to hire an admin. You got to start giving away your buyer sides. That's those are the toughest steps, right?
Well, everybody thinks
So
owning a brokerage is just the, most glamorous thing you could think of doing, and it's completely the opposite.
no, most just try to do it on their own, and they just think, well, I'm going to do my own thing. I don't want to pay a split to somebody, so I'll bring on some other agents to cut the costs. And
Right.
that's really it. And they end up realizing this is losing money, so I'm going to use my own production, which I could have had if I just hung my license somewhere else. I wouldn't have to pay nearly as much, right? So
Yeah.
they've got to be willing to grow to a certain extent to get out. But let's say you've got that agent that's 27 transactions or 35 transactions on your team, right? And they want to do all those things. They want their own identity. That's when I would move into, I'll say, well, I've already done all the hard stuff for you. All you got to do is keep growing this and you'll be my partner. Then I lay out the process I showed you early on. All the costs, you don't have to come out of pocket for anything. All you got to do is
Right.
grow it. You do the easy part. All the liabilities are covered, the thing's covering itself, blah, blah, blah. You just get me out and you can be my partner. So long as we hit these benchmarks and do the structure, it becomes very easy. And those are the people I'm rewarding. It's those top people I can't keep. I am going to find a way to keep them. We've got to give them more opportunities. And quite frankly, the bigger you are, the more opportunity you can have. I mean, you can hire productivity coaches, master faculty members, trainers, recruiters, all those different things that can all be paid based upon the production and performance without opening up big salaries. So if they're successful, they have the opportunity to make a ton of money without costing you any. So it's very easy to do it that way. But if you stay stuck as a small team, your profit margin is so tight. There's almost no way to do those types of things. So you're
Yeah.
doing it all yourself. That's why you got to hustle across the hot coals. You got to move, move, move. And self-serving, getting a coach to get you across them fast is the way it always happens. So you don't get stuck in
Yeah.
that anti-growth situation for forever. Because that does leave a stagnant stigma like a listing that sits on the market too long. Trust me. It's a
Yeah.
reflection on
You've
your
always said
leadership.
like, I mean, you've always said big teams are basically, the future, right? Do you think it's the future right now, especially like, or because you said smaller teams, obviously it's going to be more difficult to step out of production, right?
It's usually more difficult because it's usually more agent heavy. Usually the rainmaker's production is driving everything, so it's very
You're
hard to
right,
step out.
exactly.
We got to get
I've
the
been
agents
talking to
producing.
been
Yeah.
talking. I mean, there's a decent amount of rainmakers now these days that are like, I got to step back into production because we're in such a crazy market all over
Oh
the place.
yeah, we've seen it a lot. Yeah, yeah, but I mean, again, there is if we that
Yeah,
will cause us not to grow. That will cause
right.
you not to grow. So it's okay to take a couple steps back, but then we got to go 3 steps forward. Like we got to get back on the
Yeah,
horse. And that's why
yeah,
this is such a hot topic right now, is because so many people have scaled backwards. And when you do that, the whole idea of generating passive income goes away. Heck, the whole idea of retirement goes away. I mean, other than just working up until your 80s and 90s years old, you know what I
oh
mean?
yeah.
the idea of passive income this I mean, if you can try to do it off rental properties and things like that, but you know how much rental properties generate. It's not realistic. You're gonna have to start selling
Right.
those too, and then you're praying to God inflation doesn't kick in or hoping you die sooner. So
When you
it
when you when you go show that when you go meet the when the buyers meet the like 95-year-old real estate agent with a cane outside the house and you're like, this person did not plan for the future. They did not
no.
scale.
We've
They're
seen
doing
it.
this till
Yeah,
they die.
yeah. I mean, all you got to do is get a coach for a little bit to help set this stuff up. It's crazy. I mean, success leaves clues, and all those larger organizations they get you there. So it's really important. Yeah, we've all seen
Yeah.
that person with the cane. I've seen
I always feel so bad for them. There was
I've
this guy
yeah,
there was this guy at
I've
my
seen diaper
brokerage.
bags. I've seen diaper
Oh,
bags.
geez. I don't even want to. There was a
Yeah.
guy at my brokerage who was so old, and when he wouldn't come into the office, everybody was just worried that he was dead. I'm not
Yeah.
laughing
Yeah.
because it's funny, but like, it's just like,
Just two little
I,
people in a skin suit moving them around, like
I was just, and I'm like, has anyone seen what's his name? It was just so funny. But anyway, hey, if you guys want a free 30-minute coaching call with Brian, specifically, he will personally handle that coaching call for you. It's free, no strings attached. Pick his brain. Maybe he can analyze your business a little bit. And Jen Bryant in the chat says, and with the 1980s headshot. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
You
I
don't
know
get to,
Jen's one of our clients too. So this should be stuff she already knows, huh, Jen?
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. But if you want a free coaching, I'll just drop the link in the chat. If you don't want to do it just yet, save it for a rainy day. But no strings attached. Brian can talk to you for 30 minutes or so and get to know you a little bit and understand your business. Maybe you'll pick up a few nuggets in that 30-minute call. I'm also an Eisenhower coach too. So hey, if you want a free 30-minute coaching call with me too, we can make both of those happen. So click on that link in the chat. And it's realestatetrainer.com/real-estate-coaching. Or just go to the realestatetrainer.com because that's what the link brings you to,
Uh-huh.
Brian.
Or EisenhowerCoaching.com. Any of those will.
Yeah, just eisenhowercoaching.com. It changes over to the
A
realestatetrainer.com
lot of
when
things get to us. There's a lot of pathways to success.
yeah, I think that's awesome. eisenhowercoaching.com. Um Or maybe they can email you. I don't know. Whatever works best. What's your
Yeah.
email address? You want to just shout it out?
Sure. It's Brian at EisenhowerCoaching.com. Brian with an
Easy.
I. A lot of I's.
Easy to remember.
Brian at EisenhowerCoaching.com. Send me an email. I promised Nick that and you will get me. You will talk to me for at least 30 minutes. So, and that's,
Yeah, this is going to be replayed on our YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed to the Lab Code Agents YouTube channel, please go to YouTube, type in Lab Code Agents, click subscribe. That way, oh, there we go. It's just dropped in the chat. Perfect. They're reading
magic.
my mind. Click on that link instead. Subscribe. When this gets posted, you'll be notified, and it'll also go out in an email if you registered. So, Brian, thanks for being here. I have to jump off because I gotta go pick up the kid from school a little early today. But I appreciate you being here and sharing that awesome diagram. I took a picture of it for myself, so it's pretty sweet, easy to understand.
You bet. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Nick, anytime for you, my friend. Talk to you
All
soon.
right, guys. Thank you. Have a great day. See you later. Have a great week.